Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Star Trek The Motion Picture. And this movie came out in 1979, and it's the first Star Trek feature film. And I've never seen any Star Trek movie that came out before the J.J. Abrams ones, or the Calvin timeline, I believe that's what it's called. And this was my first viewing to this movie, and sadly, I didn't really enjoy this one. I found it to be long, boring, stretched out, with some good things about it. I like the music for this movie. The Star Trek theme is pretty iconic. I'm sure you all know it. And Jerry Goldsmith composed the music. And overall, I thought the music was good. The visual effects, for the most part, held up pretty well. When it was in front of anything that wasn't black, that's when they didn't really hold up. But the exterior shots of the ships looked pretty good for the most part. There are some things when it comes to physics that just don't make sense in this movie, but you kind of have to suspend disbelief because it is like a science fiction movie that's not trying to be 2001. So I guess I could forgive it a little bit for that. And I liked the wormhole sequence. That was kind of fun. There were some interesting ideas that the movie mentioned towards the end of the film, and the movie did get a bit better when Leonard Nimoy was on screen. I think he has good screen presence, and he comes in about an hour into the movie. And as far as positives go, that's about it. I didn't really connect with any of the characters. I didn't find them to be interesting, really. And the pacing is very slow for this movie. It's like basically a soap opera is how I felt about it. And for the longest time, and nothing really happened. It's just people talking about nothing, really. And the movie is way too long for what it is. It's over 2 hours long, and that runtime is not justified in the slightest. And although I did like the music for this movie, I did feel as though the main theme was overused. They use it like 6 times in the movie, to the point where I was thinking to myself, you can stop using it. Like 3 would have been enough, but to use it this many times was starting to get annoying for me. And a good chunk of this movie is just showing off visual effects, and while they may have been really impressive for the time, and to some extent still hold up to this day, it just felt like that's all the movie was doing, and it wasn't even that interesting to watch. Whereas something like 2001: A Space Odyssey, sure, there are just shots of people like floating around in space, but it's so much more compelling in that movie because of its atmosphere, and the way it's shot is very interesting. It's like a beautiful movie to look at, and I really love the tone of that movie and the sound design, all of that. It just works for me. Whereas in this movie, it's just showing off effects, and that's all it really serves a purpose for. This is also a very boring movie to look at. Like, every scene looks exactly the same. There's no style to anything in this movie. It's just shot, reverse shot, and it's just very boring to look at. And as far as structure for this movie, it just felt like a bunch of TV episodes combined into a movie that was 2 hours and 15 minutes. Honestly, if you had condensed this story into like, I don't know, 2 TV episodes that were like 20 minutes long each, the movie, this whole story really would be no different. Like in terms of both structure and what would have been kept in and would have been lost, like you would lose nothing. And the movie is just way too long for both what it is and what it explores, because what it explores is really minimal. Like, there isn't much. Like, there's very little to chew on in this movie. And speaking of the pacing, at first I was thinking to myself, I'm kind of torn about this, because on one hand, it does help take in the atmosphere of this movie to show off the effects, which are pretty cool, and the set design. But on the other hand, it really didn't serve a purpose when it came to the story and the characters. Because of that, it really just did not need to be as long as it was. Could have been a couple of TV episodes. Would have been much better. Should have been a lot shorter. I will never watch this movie again. So, very boring movie for the most part. no one did a particularly bad job acting-wise, but that's about all I can say about it. I was bored. I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't care about the story. The main theme was overused as much as I liked the music. Some of the visual effects looked a little weird. When we had guys in suits just still floating around in space, I thought the way it was handled was really goofy. And there were points in this movie where it just looked like guys were just moving around in space in their spacesuits, and they were just attached to a wire. And it was just moving them from point A to point B. And that's about all I have to say about Star Trek the Motion Picture. Not going to watch it again, and I've said everything I have to say about it. So, with all that being said, I'm going to give Star Trek the Motion Picture a 4 out of 10. More like Star Trek the Cure for Insomnia, am I right? And for those who didn't get the reference when I said Star Trek the Cure for Insomnia, that was a reference to The Ghost Rider from 2010, directed by Roman Polanski, which I have to rewatch. I haven't seen that movie in a while. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below what you thought of Star Trek the Motion Picture, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I haven't seen this one either, as I've said already, and I've heard that even numbers Star Trek movies are good, but the odd ones are not. So I'm excited to check this one out. But until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.